and welcome back to Friday Reads, where we help you find your next read. I'm Jill.
And I'm Julie, and Jill and I talked about a popular author whose books we can't seem to keep on the shelves in the Kimberly Library, and that's Colleen Hoover. I read this one, It Ends With Us. So we thought we'd give you some options of other authors somewhat similar to Colleen Hoover. So if you like Colleen Hoover, you may like these. So I'll turn it over to Jill.
This was a tough category because Colleen Hoover writes, all of her books are a little bit different. So
yeah, I've read a few. I've had a romance, a paranormal, kind of a thriller with verities. So it's been...
it's a mix. So I started with romance because she's got a lot of romance. And I picked Jenny Colgan, who writes, she's a New York Times bestselling author, and she writes romantic comedy. This is about a down-on-the-luck florist. This, my very 90s romance by Jenny Colgan. It's a down-on-her-luck florist whose future begins to bloom when she takes on the challenge of helping to transform her near-nerdy roommate. Holly is a frustrated florist whose life doesn't seem to be coming up roses. Fleeing a roommate situation from hell, she moves in with a motley crew of friends. Josh, a sexually confused merchant banker, Kate, a high-flying legal eagle with talents to match, and Addison, a gorgeous computer geek who spends his days communicating with his online girlfriend and anyone who worships at the altar of Jean-Luc Picard. And the moment Holly catches a rare glimpse of Addison, she's smitten. The only problem is how to get him to swivel his chair from the computer screen to her adoring gaze. After a series of false starts involving a new friend and mathematician, Finn, Holly coaxes Addison away from his computer screen and out into the open. While out in the open spells disaster for Addison, curiously, her own future begins to bloom. Holly and her friends make desperate attempts to connect with Addison, drag him away from his fiercely possessive girlfriend, Claudia, and get him to communicate with the real world. With Jenny Colgan's trademark cast of unforgettable characters, my very 90s romance will capture your heart. So, Jenny Colgan. My first suggestion.
I went pretty heavy on romance too, actually. And my first pick is Elle Kennedy's Good Girl Complex. Mackenzie Mack Cabot is a people pleaser. Her demanding parents, her prep school friends, her longtime boyfriend. It's exhausting, really, always following the rules. Unlike most 20-year-olds, all she really wants to do is focus on growing her internet business. But first she must get a college degree at her parents' insistence. That means moving to the beachside town of Avalon Bay, a community made up of locals and the wealthy students of Garnett College. Max had plenty of practice suppressing her wilder impulses, but when she meets local bad boy Cooper Hartley, that ability is suddenly tested. Cooper's rough around the edges, raw, candid, a threat to her orderly existence, but their friendship soon becomes the realest thing in her life. Despite his disdain for the trust fund kids he sees coming and going from the town, Cooper soon realizes Mac isn't just another rich clone and falls for her. Hard, but as Mac finally starts feeling accepted by Cooper and his friends, the secret he's been keeping from her threatens the only place she's ever felt at home. This writer, Elle Kennedy, writes contemporary romances and romantic suspense. Her books often feature strong heroines who take a risk by falling for the bad boy type, similar to Lillian Ryle and Colleen Hoover's It Ends With Us. So,
romantic suspense is how I saw her describe Colleen Hoover. And this is also Jane Ann Krentz's genre. This is Lightning in a Mirror. This is the third in the Fog Lake series. The first one is The Vanishing, if you're interested in starting at the beginning. I don't think it matters. Jane Ann Krentz is the author of 50 New York Times bestsellers. She writes in 3 different genres. Her contemporary is Jane Ann Krentz, and then she also writes historical fiction as Amanda Quick, which we have recommended before.
Yeah, we recommended her books.
And also futuristic as Jane Castle, so that's kind of interesting.
Wow.
Lightning in a Mirror is the last installment in the Fog Lake trilogy. Olivia LeClaire's experiment with speed dating is not going well. First, there was a nasty encounter with the date from hell, and tried to murder her, and now the mysterious Harlan Rankart, long believed dead, sits down at her table and tells her she's the only one who can help him locate the legendary Vortex Lab. This is not what Olivia had in mind when she signed up for 4-event success guaranteed package offered by the dating agency. She doesn't have much choice, though, because her psychic investigation firm works for the mysterious foundation, and Victor Algermet, the director, is adamant that she assist Harlan. There is just one problem. No one knows Harlan's real agenda. His father once ran the foundation like a mob organization, and Harlan was destined to be his heir. There's a real possibility Harlan has returned to claim his inheritance. For now, however, is a case of enemy of my enemy is my friend, because others are after the secrets of the long-lost lab. Unfortunately for Olivia, the one thing friend and foe have in common is everyone is convinced she is the key. Her unique psychic talent is required to defuse the ticking time bomb that is the Forcrux. Neither trusts the other, but Olivia and Harlan soon realize they must work together to survive and unlock the Bluestone Project's most dangerous secrets before more innocent people die. So, Finding in a Mirror, Jane Ann Krentz.
My second pick comes from Sally Thorne. This was published last year. This is Second First Impressions. This author is also a writer of contemporary romances and romantic comedies. She's the author of 99% Mine and The Hating Game, which was adapted into a movie. She has a new book, Angelica Frankenstein Makes Her Match, expecting to be released later this year. So, in this book, Ruthie has worked the front desk at the Providence Luxury Retirement Villa for 6 years, dedicating her entire adult life to caring for the villa's residents, maintaining the property, and guarding the endangered tortoises that live in the villa's gardens. Somewhere along the way, she's forgotten that she's young and pretty and that there's a world outside of work, until she meets the son of the property developer who just acquired the retirement center. Teddy Prescott has spent the last few years partying, sleeping in late, tattooing himself when bored, and generally not taking life too seriously, something his father, who dreams of grooming Teddy into his successor, can't quite understand. When Teddy needs a place to crash, his father seizes a chance to get him to grow up. He'll let Teddy stay in one of the on-site cottages at the retirement home, but only if he works to earn his keep. Well, Teddy doesn't have much else to do and agrees, and he can change a few light bulbs and clip some hedges, no sweat. But Ruthie has plans for Teddy, too. Her two wealthiest and most eccentric residents have just placed an ad seeking a new personal assistant to torment. The women are 90-year-old, 4-foot-tall menaces, and not one of their assistants has lasted longer than a week. Offering up Teddy seems like a surefire way to get rid of the tall, handsome, unnerving man who won't stop getting under her skin. So, got to read this book. You'll figure out if Ruthie's wondering if Teddy's magic was all just a facade or if there's something there. So, Second First Impressions by Sally Thorne.
So my next one is Kristen Higgins. She's a New York Times, USA Today, and Publishers Weekly best-selling author of more than 20 novels. Many of her books are available in large print, if that's important to you, and her genre is usually women's fiction with romance. And in interviews, she says that her romance often happens behind closed doors, so there's not too much sexy stuff if that bothers you. Emma London never thought she had anything in common with grandmother Genevieve London. The regal old woman came from wealthy and bluest blood New England stock, but that didn't protect her from life's cruelest blows. The disappearance of Genevieve's young son, followed by the premature death of her husband, but Genevieve rose from those ashes of grief and built a fashion empire that was respected the world over, even when it meant neglecting her other son. When Emma's own mother died, her father abandoned her on his mother's doorstep. Genevieve took Emma in and reluctantly raised her until Emma got pregnant her senior year of high school. Genevieve kicked her out with nothing but the clothes on her back. But Emma took with her the most important London possession, the strength not to just survive, but to thrive. And indeed, Emma has built a wonderful life for herself and her teenage daughter, Riley. So what is Emma to do when Genevieve does the one thing Emma never expected of her, and after not speaking of her for nearly 2 decades, calls and asks for help? Life and Other Inconveniences by Kristen Higgins.
My third pick is Say You Still Love Me by K.A. Tucker, published in 2019. She's the author of The Simple Wild and Keep Her Safe, and her books are described as a little bit of a master of steamy romance. Ooh. So, in this book, life's a mixed bag for Piper Calloway. On the one hand, she's a 29-year-old vice president at her dad's multi-billion-dollar real estate development firm, living the high single life with her 2 best friends in a swanky downtown penthouse. On the other hand, she's considered a pair of sexy legs in a male-dominated world, and she's constantly trying to prove her worth. Plus, she's stuck seeing her narcissistic ex-fiancé, a fellow VP, on the other side of her glass office wall every day. Things get even more complicated for Piper when she runs into Kyle Miller, the handsome new security guard at Callaway Group Industries, and coincidentally, the first love of her life. The guy she hasn't seen or heard from since they were summer camp counselors together. The guy from the wrong side of the tracks again. The guy who apparently doesn't even remember her name. Piper may be a high-powered businesswoman now, but she soon realizes that her schoolgirl crush is not only alive, but stronger than ever. And it's crippling her concentration. What's more, despite Kyle's distant attitude, she's convinced their reunion isn't really coincidental, and that his feelings for her still run deep. She's determined to make him admit to this, no matter the consequences. So, Say You'd Still Love Me by K.A. Tucker.
I feel like that title sounds like a Colleen Hoover title.
Yeah, it did.
If you like the suspense part of Colleen Hoover's stuff, you might like Joy Fielding. This is Culdesac. Joy Fielding is a Canadian author, and she's written dozens of novels, but her books are more popular in the United States than they are in Canada, which is interesting. So this one, which kind of went with our neighbors a few weeks ago, someone on this quiet, unassuming cul-de-sac will be shot dead in the middle of a sultry July night. Will it be Maggie, the perfectionist wife, or Craig, the husband who can't quite live up to her expectations? They've packed up their 2 children and fled their life in Canada, hoping for a fresh start in Florida, only to find demons of the past hovering on their doorstep. Maybe it will be Nick, a highly respected oncologist, or his wife Danny, a successful dentist, both with well-kept secrets of their own. Or Julia, the elderly widow whose troubled grandson has recently moved in with her, introducing unsavory habits and even more unsavory acquaintances into her formerly quiet existence. Then there's Olivia and her husband Sean, having lost his job in prestigious advertising agency. Sean is depressed, resentful of his working wife, and drinking heavily. He's also prone to increasingly violent fantasies. And what of the newlyweds, Aidan and Heidi, whose marriage is already on the rocks due to Aidan's reluctance to stand up to his intrusive mother? Matters aren't helped when Heidi's befriends Julia's grandson, setting the stage for a major blow-up. A diverse group of neighbors, to be sure, yet all harbor secrets, and all bear scars, and all have access to guns. Not all will survive the night. Joy Fielding. A little bit of suspense in there if you like that.
My next pick is a book by Renee Carlino. This is Wish You Were Here, published in 2017. This is an author I wasn't familiar with. When I looked her up, it said she wrote contemporary women's novels and adult fiction. In this book, Charlotte has spent her 20s adrift, floating from interest to interest, job to job, guy to guy, searching for a spark but never finding it. All she knows is that she won't discover it working as a waitress at a pies and fries joint in L.A. or living with her fun but aimless best friend in a tiny apartment in the Arts District. Then, Charlotte collides with Adam, a gorgeous and soulful painter who seems just as lost as she feels. Their instant connection turns into a midnight drink and a whirlwind night of champagne, Chinese food, and kind of conversation that only happens in romantic comedies. But the next morning, Adam gives Charlotte the cold shoulder, leaving her confused and hurt and wondering if the few odd moments between them the night before were red flags in disguise. Months later, Charlotte hasn't been able to shake Adam, so she decides to find out what happened the morning after their magical night together. That fateful decision rewrites their wild love story, but what Charlotte doesn't know yet is that the ending has already been written. So this one kind of intriguing to me. And like I said, I wasn't familiar with this author, so Wish You Were Here by Renee Carlino.
I'm going back to romance. This is kind of a new author. She only has like 3 books. Helen Hoang. This is the latest one. If you like to start at the beginning, the Kiss Quotient is her first one. She's got 3 books out. This is the latest, The Heart Principle. The interesting thing about this author is she's kind of an introvert, but she's on the Asperger's spectrum, and she kind of uses that in her writing, her experiences with that. So I thought that was a little interesting. When violinist Anna Sun accidentally achieves career success with a viral YouTube video, she finds herself incapacitated and burned out from her attempts to replicate that moment. And when her longtime boyfriend announces he wants an open relationship before making a final commitment, a hurt and angry Anna decides if he wants an open relationship, then she does too. Translation, she's going to embark on a string of one-night stands. And the more unacceptable to men, the better. That's where tattooed motorcycle riding Quan Deep comes in. Their first attempt at a one-night stand fails, as does their second and their third, because being with Quan is more than sex. He accepts Anna on an unconditional level that she herself has just started to understand. However, when tragedy strikes Anna's family, she takes on a role that she is ill-suited for until the burden of expectations threaten to destroy her. Anna and Quan have to fight for their chance at love, but to do that, they also have to fight for themselves. So, if you like the romance part, this is a new author with good romances. Very good.
My last pick is an author we've featured before, Christina Lauren, and this is the On Honeymooners. This was published in 2019. Christina Lauren is the combined pen name of longtime writing partners, best friends Christina Hobbs and Lauren Billings. So that's how you get the Christina Lauren. That co-author duo writes young adult and adult fiction. Their books have been translated into over 30 languages. And when I looked them up, it said some of their books have kissing, some of their books have a lot of kissing. So in this book, The On Honeymooners, Olive is always unlucky. In her career, in love, in, well, just about everything. Her identical twin sister, on the other hand, is probably the luckiest person in the world. Her meet cute with her fiancé is something right out of a romantic comedy. Gag. And she's managed to finance her entire wedding by winning a series of internet contests. Double gag. Worst of all, she's forcing Olive to spend the day with her sworn enemy Ethan, who just happens to be the best man. Olive braces herself to get through 24 hours of wedding hell before she can return to her comfortable, unlucky life. But when the entire wedding party gets food poisoning from eating bad shellfish, the only people who aren't affected are Olive and Ethan. And now there's an all-expenses paid honeymoon in Hawaii up for grabs. Putting their mutual hatred aside for the sake of this free vacation, they head for paradise determined to avoid each other at all costs. But when Olive runs into her future boss, the little white lie she tells him is suddenly at risk to become a whole lot bigger. She and Ethan now have to pretend to be loving newlyweds, and her luck seems worse than ever. But the weird thing is, she doesn't mind playing pretend. In fact, she feels kind of lucky. So check out The On Honeymooners by this writing duo.
I like that writing duo. It's very good. So if you do like Colleen Hoover, maybe we give you some ideas of other authors you can try while you're waiting for your books to come in.
And Colleen Hoover, always check our Lucky Day. We have quite a few Colleen Hoovers in the Lucky Day that keep circulating. As Jill said, this was kind of a tough list to find some authors that are comparable to her, and she certainly has been flying off the shelves all summer here at Kimberly. Mm-hmm. Thanks for watching. You know, you can find us on our Facebook page, and our YouTube videos have been getting more views, so thanks for watching on the library's YouTube channel. And until next time, bye-bye. Bye.